There is a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It's the silence of someone who has read all the books, watched all the videos, practiced every method, and yet, deep inside, feels that nothing has truly changed. It's as if all the answers are already available, but none have been enough to break through the invisible barrier that separates knowing from manifesting. This barrier is subtle, almost imperceptible, but immensely powerful. It lives in the body, not the mind. It vibrates in the cells, not the words. And that's the paradox: the more you try to understand, the farther away the feeling seems to be. The more you want to transform your life with awareness, the more life seems to resist moving. Then comes a pain that few can name. The pain of carrying within an ocean of spiritual knowledge, having understood all the laws, all the principles, all the teachings, and still being stuck in the same scenery. It's not laziness. It's not lack of faith. It's something deeper, more unsettling. A silent blockage that doesn't dissolve with inspirational quotes or new techniques. It's like being trapped behind glass, seeing the life you want, but always touching the cold pain of current reality. And that prison hurts. Because you know what you want. You feel what you deserve. But the manifestation doesn't come. Maybe you've asked yourself, why do I, who have studied so much, still feel stuck? Or perhaps, is something wrong with me? The answer is gentler than it seems. There's nothing wrong with you. What exists is an internal collision between the conscious mind that desires and the emotional body that still vibrates fear, scarcity, repetition. This is the invisible fracture separating the field of intention from the field of reception. And it is in this vibrational gap that many seekers slip, become frustrated, and begin to doubt everything they've learned. Have you ever felt that the more important something is to you, the harder it seems to manifest? As if the urgency of the desire increases the vibrational distance between you and what you seek. That's not madness. That's vibrational physics. Abraham Hicks speaks of this with clarity. A desire, when emotionally overloaded, tends to activate its absence rather than its presence. Because when you feel that it hasn't happened yet, you are emitting exactly that it still isn't yours. And the universe doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you vibrate. This video is not another collection of techniques or encouragement. It wasn't made to motivate you. It was made to reach you. To illuminate the hidden parts of your vibrational field that are still misaligned with what you're trying to receive. This isn't a video to speed up your manifestation. It's an invitation to pause, to silence, and to feel, honestly, what's keeping your reality from rewriting itself. Because sometimes, the mind is ready. But the body is still trapped in old narratives, painful memories, inherited beliefs that keep telling the same story of limitation. And as long as the vibration doesn't change, the reality repeats itself. So let us walk together through this silent labyrinth between knowing and being. Between wanting and allowing. Because manifesting is not about convincing the universe of anything. It's about aligning with the version of you who already lives what you desire. And that only happens when you stop trying to make it work, and begin to feel that it already is. That you already can. That you already deserve. Take a deep breath. Let's begin. Sometimes, you feel like you're walking, but going nowhere. As if one force is pulling you forward, and another, invisible yet just as strong, is pulling you back. This is the dual engine of manifestation. On one side, there's desire. The vibrant energy of what your soul longs to experience. On the other, there's doubt. The silent vibration of what's still recorded in your emotional body as impossible, risky, or unattainable. And while these two forces operate simultaneously within you, your reality remains frozen. The impulse of desire is real. When you frequently think about something you want, that thought begins to generate movement. Quantum physics talks about this. So does Abraham Hicks. Focus creates momentum. The universe doesn't respond to how hard you try, but to the intensity of your frequency. And when you vibrate with clarity, reality begins to reorganize. But what happens when the desire is old? When what you want has already been tried, imagined, suffered, and, for some reason, didn't happen? The answer is simple: that desire now carries a complex emotional charge. A vibrational weight that no longer lies only in the intention, but in resistance. This is where many fall into the trap of wanting too much. The conscious mind insists, "I need this." But the vibrational field says, "It's still not safe. It still hurts. It still seems unlikely." And this overload of, "it hasn't happened yet," becomes a continuous energetic emission of lack. You vibrate absence while saying you want abundance. You visualize love but feel the fear of rejection. You affirm trust, but your body is still trapped in the trauma of the last time you tried. And that's why the universe seems not to respond. Worse, this resistance often wears the mask of logic. Thoughts like, "I've tried so many times, it's hard, good relationships don't last, this world doesn't favor sensitive people like me," they sound like reason. But they're actually deeply rooted emotional beliefs. Unprocessed programming formed by past experiences. They're voices from the past dressed as caution. And as long as you continue feeding those thoughts, even subtly, they keep vibrating in your field as truth. And the universe, with perfect precision, continues to respond to what you feel, not to what you want. At this point, an uncomfortable but freeing realization appears: you're not trying to change your reality. You're trying to think your way out of an energetic pattern. You're using affirmations, visualizations, and techniques, while your emotional field is still vibrating the opposite. And here again, Abraham Hicks' wisdom rings true: what's active in your vibration takes precedence over what's present in your thoughts. You can think about abundance all day long, but if your body vibrates scarcity deep down, scarcity is what will remain alive. The emotional body has massive vibrational power. It fuels the electromagnetic field your heart emits constantly. Joe Dispenza explains that when you combine intention with elevated emotion, you change your energetic signature. But when intention is contaminated by fear, insecurity, or frustration, the field becomes incoherent. And reality continues reflecting that. It's no use repeating that you are prosperous if, deep down, you feel you're always fighting to survive. It's no use visualizing a fulfilling relationship if you still don't feel worthy of love. So before trying to change the outer world, you must quiet the world within. Because it's not effort that manifests. It's alignment. And alignment doesn't come from control or force. It comes from allowing your vibration to be clean enough for reality to match it. That's why the next step isn't to do more. It's to do less. It's to be still. It's to learn to listen to what your vibrational field is saying before insisting on any new technique. You're not broken. You're divided. And it's this internal division that we need to gently and truthfully embrace. There comes a point on the path where the greatest obstacle is no longer out there. It lives inside. Inside you, there's a subtle yet deeply rooted conflict between the identity you've carried your whole life and the new version that's trying to be born. This conflict isn't rational. It's vibrational. And while it remains active, manifestation stays stuck, as if something within you keeps pressing the brake even when your heart is ready to accelerate. Imagine a train with two engines. One, placed at the front, symbolizes your desire, pulling strongly in a new direction. The other, attached at the back, represents your old beliefs, fears, emotional conditionings, and it's pulling you backwards. The train doesn't break. But it also doesn't move. And that immobility exhausts you, frustrates you, hurts. Because you feel the pull of the new, yet something continues dragging you back to familiar patterns. This is the vibrational dual engine, and while both are active, no technique will resolve it. Because the issue is not in what you want, but in what you haven't yet released. Maybe right now you're trying to manifest a new relationship, a new source of income, a life filled with more purpose. And maybe you've already done everything right. Affirmations, visualizations, scripting. But you still haven't broken free from that cycle of stagnation. And the truth, though hard, is necessary. You don't need another technique. You need silence. The kind of silence that patiently welcomes the old energy still vibrating in you. Because before you manifest the new, you must stop justifying the old. Stop retelling stories. Stop explaining why it didn't work before. And just be still. In that stillness, something begins to happen. Not quickly. Not loudly. But for real. The emotional body begins to let go. The justifications lose strength. The control dissolves. And finally, the new frequency has room to settle in. Not because you forced it. But because you allowed it. Because you stopped trying to become, and began to feel that you already are. And here's a story. Real, symbolic, but familiar to many. A woman spent years trying to manifest her dream relationship. She knew everything about spiritual laws, studied Abraham Hicks, applied techniques, meditated. But the same patterns repeated. It always ended the same way. Until one day, after yet another disappointment, she did nothing. She didn't seek answers. Didn't write new affirmations. She simply stopped. And in that stillness, she didn't fall into emptiness. She fell into herself. She began to notice how much she was still trying to control, convince, steer the flow. She began to surrender. Not as someone who gives up, but as someone who realizes there's no need to force. She started walking alone, taking care of her own field, silencing expectations. And it was in that space of vibrational surrender that something changed. Without looking, she was found. A new relationship appeared, but not like the others. Not as an escape, not as projection, but as an extension of the new vibration she now embodied. The paradox unfolded. It was when she stopped trying, that manifestation arrived. That's the power of vibrational surrender. The quantum collapse doesn't happen when you wish harder. It happens when you gently and truthfully let go of the old field. When the past dissolves without a fight. When the new arrives without announcement. And that's why, more than insisting, you need to allow. Because all real transformation happens when your frequency stops trying to reach, and starts to receive. At the end of it all, once the inner path has been walked, once knowing and feeling begin to approach each other like old friends finally recognizing one another, a new understanding starts to emerge. Manifesting is not an act of creation. It's an act of reception. And you don't need to create what you desire. You need to clear the inner space that still blocks its arrival. The universe doesn't need to be convinced of anything. It's already ready. You are the one who needs to be. The most persistent illusion, fueled by a spiritualized ego, is that manifestation comes from control, from the perfect technique, from the precise sequence of practices. But the truth is simpler, and more demanding. It calls for surrender. It calls for letting go. It calls for unmaking, before making. Because vibration isn't built through effort. It is revealed when resistance ceases. The challenge is not knowing what you want. That, you already know. The challenge is removing everything that still vibrates as an obstacle between you and what you desire. The old stories. The memories you still hold on to. The resentment still pulsing as open wounds. The silent guilt echoing as self-sabotage. Until these layers are acknowledged, the field cannot become receptive. And without vibrational receptivity, no quantum collapse is possible. Because the universe can only deliver what it finds room to land. That's why meditation, silence, and detachment aren't just optional practices for the spiritually curious. They're essential tools of vibrational engineering. They are the instruments that dissolve the densest layers of your old identity. They are the means by which you step out of your mind and into the field. And it is in that field where everything is already created, just waiting to be received. The only question left, after all this, is simple, but deep: how willing are you to let go of the old field in order to receive the new? Because there's no way to manifest something new with the frequency of someone still protecting themselves from the past. There's no way to live the love you want while still vibrating the fear of being abandoned. There's no way to experience the abundance you dream of while still vibrating the weight of inherited scarcity. Receiving is a state. A state you only access when your vibration is clean enough not to interfere with what's already ready to arrive. And that state is built, day by day, through the choice to quiet the noise, to welcome what still hurts, to release what no longer serves. Not with urgency, but with presence. Not with anxiety, but with gratitude. Because the universe always responds. Always. But it can only find you when you're no longer trying to be someone, and are simply inhabiting your truth. You are not broken. You are transforming. And the new only arrives when you make space for it to enter.